Here, right, without much further ado, let's talk a bit about cyclo-cross. Let's talk about Worlds as well, because up on stage now, put your hands together for Mike Kluge and Roger Hammond. Good to see you both. So much to talk about. We can talk about road, we can talk about Focus Bikes, which Mike founded a quarter of a century ago. Right, but let's talk, let's start actually about in 1992, when you were world champion, cyclo-cross world champion. What was it like? Tell me the story of becoming world champ.
It was good. I actually became world champion 2 times before, in '85 and in '87. At that time I was living in Berlin, very nice city by the way. Lots of nightlife, good parties. So after these 2 world champion titles, I drifted a little bit away and was involved in parties, came home when it was getting light already. And that doesn't really work with my cycling career. So I was going a little bit down. I lost a couple of sponsors. I was very upset about these sponsors, but actually it was my own mistake because I wasn't focusing anymore on my sport, and I didn't know what to do at that time. And then something really happened where I found a way to change my life. I don't know if you guys know the Balboa, the Rocky movies. There's like a couple of them, and the series number 4 inspired me to change my life. And that thing, he's like already like the Apollo, the black guy, and Rocky, they all like have their villas and Ferraris and good life. And then they have that Russian guy who like want to fight against them, and Apollo dies in that first died in that first fight, and then Rocky had to take revenge, and the coach was saying, you have no option to do this because you're living a totally different life. The only way is you can like fight against them to live in the same surrounding. So he moved to Russia in a wooden house. So at that time I was calling my friend in the Black Forest, we're having a pension. I want to come over. Yeah, when? Tomorrow. For how long? 3 months. Why? I want to become a world champion again. And then I was training for 3 months, and I became world champion in Leeds. And that changed my entire life. So sometimes you just have to figure out what to do.
Did you hang up a frozen side of beef and punch it like Rocky did in that?
I mean, I had rocks in my rucksack.
Did you really?
I was
so this is back to basics training.
Exactly, very basics. I had like these dynamos on my bicycle on the wheel, you know, like to make it more resistant. I was training with heavy bikes. At that season, I was only like racing 6 races, and nobody really expected me. But I was on the start line. I was so confident. And I mean, even Artie van der Poel, he was trying to attack me in the race, and I immediately attacked him again, like within like the next 200 meters, and I was just like trying to let him know, don't even think about it.
But I'm intrigued about the change. Like you say, you were racing in the 80s, and then you're in Berlin as well. But that's pre-Berlin Wall. I mean, you know, Berlin was a different place then. It was the end of a long motorway from the rest of of Western Germany. So did that contribute something to your change? The fact that Germany was changing around you, did that make a difference?
I mean, the first biggest issue I already had is all the biggest races have been like in Belgium and Holland. So to get from Berlin to there was always like a 600, 700 kilometer drive by a normal car. Not, you know, like my competitors had like a mobile home. It took maybe half an hour to get to the race, totally relaxed, warm mobile home. I was like out of my car. So it was totally different, and if I would have the option right now, I would go back with a mobile home, with my supporters, and do the same thing again. I think it would be much more fun.
Roger, the same year, you won the junior world title, and I bet training with rocks in a backpack is pretty standard for you.
It was back in those days. Cyclo-cross in the UK was still quite small. Stuart Marshall, a few years before me, had won a world title. So you know, it was still quite a small. You know, it was quite funny. When I started in '92, it was, you know, we had 2 or 3 pairs of wheels and 2 bikes if you were lucky. And then by the end of my career, you know, there was people. Well, actually, I remember that when I was at Colstrop in 2005, Tom van Oppen using our road team truck for all of his equipment to go to a race. So the same stuff we'd use for an entire road team, he had full of cyclocross equipment. So, you know, it was, back in those days, it really was quite, you know,
niche.
Cobbling. Yeah, niche. Yeah, I remember for the World Championships, they introduced an extra pit because one of the descents in Leeds was deemed so dangerous. They put a pit at the other just after it because they were expecting mechanical problems. And I remember just having to borrow pieces of bits from Pete Hargrove's cycles, lent me saddles, somebody else lent me pedals, and you know, it was I was using one of the first people to use SPD pedals, but I couldn't borrow a pair of pedals in time, so I actually had one bike out of the 5 that had clips and straps with SPD cleats on, and it just happened to be, you know, I punctured and I had to ride quarter of the lap on SPD pedals or SPD shoes with clips and straps. And so, you know, it's a different world to the racing nowadays.
It is, but you know, we talk about it being niche. I mean, road cycling back then was niche, you know, and to the wider population considered unusual. What was the reaction to you being a Brit who indulged in this sort of crazy pursuit from the Low Countries? How did people react to you being a cyclocrosser?
It was. I mean, I was welcomed in Belgium so wholeheartedly because it was still a national sport there,
Yeah.
and then to have another foreigner that was weird enough or crazy enough to be interested and dedicate their career to it was. So I ended up moving to Belgium and living there for 15 or nearly 18 years actually.
Yeah.
So I mean, I was very welcomed, but I also liked the fact that. You know, it's how I always did my career. I quite like the fact of just being grounded every day. So I just remember winning the World Championships in Leeds. You know, then just, you know, your world just changes for that day. And then Monday morning, I was back at school doing my French mock A levels. So and I remember just try and get out of them. Just go, look, I won the World Championships. No, French oral, 9 o'clock.
How much of a difference did it make? Because obviously these titles arrived at very different times in your careers. How much of a difference do these particular titles make to you? Mike first.
I mean, as already said, the 92 title was like very important because in the years before, I always said, like, I mean, I was racing on the road as well. So I missed it in 84 and 88 to go to the Olympics on the road. So that was a very disappointment, especially 88 for Seoul. And after that, actually, I also quit for a year. I stopped cycling for a entire year. I went to California and...
oh, you just sick of it? You just had enough?
Yeah, I was just not believing in honesty and in the federation, because the situation was in 88, there was a World Championship in Hagendorf in Switzerland, what was like super muddy, and I was invited a half a year before there. It was summer at the time, 30 degrees. I was walking around with the journalists, and they have been asking me, okay, Mike Kluge, how do you like the course here, Hagendorf World Championship in 88 in January? I said, right now, dry, nice, blue sky, wonderful, but January, what is if this is raining here? And they said, it's frozen. I said, but just in case it's raining, because all like cornfields here, this would be like really deep and muddy. Now it won't. And anyways, you're a cyclocrosser, then you run a little bit. So actually, you know what happened? The day before, it was the temperature was getting warmer, it was melting. And from the 2.8 kilometer, we had to run per lap 1.5 kilometer. I was, in the morning, I was crying, and I thought, this is not my sport. And I don't want to have like a bicycle as a handicap, on my shoulder. I want to have it as an, like, advantage. So I was in bed in the morning before the race, and I thought, what should I do? What should I do? This is not what I want to do. And I already lost my power. It's really like terrible. Sometimes I can lift myself up, what I did like in 92 with a positive energy. But there I talked myself into like a negative energy, and I could just not, even if I was powerful enough, I could not like re-perform. So I thought, at least I want to set a message here. So I was watching TV, I saw Greenpeace, and they said, you have first to get attention. So I was talking to the kids of the hotel, do you have like paint? So I was painting my face. I was standing on the start line, so people looked at me, what's going on with him?
What did you paint? What, was it an
was
animal?
yellow, like Indiana, like Indian, like just like
Okay.
get attention of people. And then I was taking one lap just to see if it is really as bad as I judged it, and then after one lap I was taking my bike upside down and was walking around. I said, boycott. I stopped the words from me. Some people from Switzerland, they have been like spitting in front of me. I said, go home. And some said, yes, that's right. It's not like a real cyclocross race. And because of that, I got punished by our cycling federation, and they didn't take me to the Olympics. And there I really lost the trust in, the best is going to the Olympic Games, for me, like the second time. And that was a break. And because of that, 92, by the way, what was good about Roger, because he was in the morning like racing the junior race, so all the British people have been like excited about the victory.
Okay.
So he really gave me a very, very good
platform,
like to have a good audience. So.
They were cheering a German.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So it was the culmination then for you, 92, it was the culmination of a long comeback after that experience.
And I mean, we all know that even you focus on something, it still doesn't, happen for sure. There are like so many, things involved, people involved. I mean, I have to thank my family. I have to thank my friends. I have like a second family where I was staying. So it's like a lot of people which are involved, and you can't get this and achieve this success by yourself, especially in cyclocross. I mean, Roger said it. It's so massive, I mean, especially in the winter time. You have to deal with supporter, with different bicycles, and traveling a lot, and get the stuff clean. A lot.
That's why I don't do cyclocross. It's too dirty. You also have to thank Dolph Lundgren as well, for the Rocky film. What about you, Roger? What okay, you had to go back into your French A-level and your other A-levels as well, but what difference did that win in 92 make to you?
I mean, it mentally it was a change. If you roll back to then, at that point in the European peloton, there was almost no bike riders. There was Chris Boardman racing in the world tour, or what was the highest level then. So, and I was in a grammar school with parents that were very academic. So, for me, it was all. I remember my headmaster saying, "You're going to go to university because 99.9% of our students go to university." So, it was that kind of push. And so the favour was to go that direction, but my dream was to always be a bike rider. But when there's only one out of the whole population of cyclists, it was I thought it was a little bit far-fetched. And then when I won the World Championships, I just thought, actually I can be that one. And I think that was the thing. It just made me not even think about failure. Before then, you're always thinking about why it won't work and have a second option and do some, a backup plan.
Yeah.
But after I won that World, I remember it being a mental change, thinking, well, actually, I'm going to go to university. I'm going to do my degree just because at that time there wasn't an under 23 category, so I just wanted to delay my professional career and miss out on those years where you led astray, do the wrong thing, and when you're just too young and too easily influenced. And I also wanted it just as a backup plan, so that I could always say, well, actually, you know what, this isn't for me. I'll leave and go back and use something else. So I delayed it, but there was never any thought of not being a professional. I just went to Belgium. How long is it going to take? Not if. And that was all due to that one day in Leeds.
Was the idea to get into road and be a professional in road, or was it to try and do it in cyclocross, or always combine the two?
The only reason I did cyclocross was because my exams were in June and July, so I didn't have time to train. I had to take time off during the summer. When my first year as a professional on the road was the first day I'd done more than 32 days of racing. So I just didn't have time. I used to stop riding my bike in May, do my exams, and then start again afterwards. But it was always, disjointed. So cyclocross was the only time where I could actually train consistently. So that's why I went into cyclocross.
Because you think about all the road cyclists that have been successful here, the ones we love, and they've all come from another discipline. You obviously had cyclocross, you got Cav and Wiggins with track, and Geraint as well. You think about Sagan being a mountain biker first. That's his first love. That's his real love, actually. He didn't race road at the Olympics because he was desperate to come 20th or something in the mountain bike race. Yeah. Do you think these other disciplines, and cyclocross especially, has to sit in tandem with road, as we're now seeing as well with Tom Pidcock racing for Wiggins on the road, now setting up his own cyclocross team as well. Do the two have to go hand in hand?
It for sure helps a lot, because I mean every discipline has its own demands. And for example, I was racing. I also started like on the road, and then cyclocross, then mountain bike, and then also track races. So I did everything, and it really helped me, especially track racing. What is very important, because you have only one gear. So the need on a track bike is you have to have like a very narrow bottom bracket that you fit like very close with your legs, so they can do like a very high spin. And when mountain bikes came on the market, with 3 chain rings in front, big tires, nobody had the idea, huge bottom bracket, and you have been like pedaling like this. So with that one, you couldn't do like a high spin. So I thought, you know what, if I'm changing this, like making it very narrow, then I can still do like a very nice spin. And that actually helped me like winning races.
Yeah.
So
The high cadence.
the high cadence, I could ride much more efficient. And I was the first one who was using it for me because of the knowledge of different disciplines.
What about you, Roger? Was it always a natural thing that these two areas of your cycling life would run in tandem?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was. I continued cross right through to my last year as a professional, because I felt it really had a place in winter training. I mean, I remember when I signed for, I was in the smaller Belgian teams, which obviously encouraged it hugely. Then I went to Discovery Channel, and they actually banned me from riding cyclocross that winter. And the following summer, I had a terrible season on the road. So it just gave me the confidence. Actually, what I was doing in the winter was actually right, because in those days it was long base miles, 8 hours on the road, no intensity. Absolutely, intensity was forbidden. And I was back at home. My longest ride I ever used to do outside of training camps was 2.5 hours. But I would do 2.5 hours. The lowest heart rate I'd have would be 155, 160, so always above that. So it was completely contradictory to how they trained in those days. But now, everybody's doing high intensity in the winter. Yeah. So, I actually, my argument is, do you ever get dropped when you're riding at 120 heart rate? No. If you ask a professional bike rider to ride for 12 hours at 120, he could ride 4 weeks like that. You only get dropped when you go up a 22% climb on the Koppenberg and you're riding above your threshold, and it's the recovery from that enables you to go to the breakaways, stay in the group. That's what cyclocross is all about. So the testing I did, so going back to the point, is the testing I did with T-Mobile, max power, nothing special with me. In endurance, nothing special. But I still have the record of recovery from threshold. So I was the fastest guy for a heart rate to drop back down to 70, and that includes all of the Ulrichs, the guys before me. So, and that was always from the cyclocross training and background.
Do you credit that with the success you had on the road, and in particular in the classics?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was a bit alternative because I was doing something slightly different, and actually, what happened? My dad ended up training me initially, and so he just read a guy's a book, Keep On Running, and read Keep On Running. It's about a marathon runner that trained himself for marathons by never running more than 50% of the distance of a marathon. And he just translated that into a cyclocross program, and
sounds great.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Well, the thing is, it's all these things. Philosophy of life is you just get bashed down this. I feel like this ball when you hit a rock and it throws you that direction, then you throw that. And basically, what it was, I just didn't have time to do 8-hour rides. I was at school every day, so I had to do something different, and it ended up being something that was adopted later on.
The other thing is, and we've seen it with Sagan, we've seen it with you, the bike handling is just better. Your bike handling is better if you're racing cyclocross. You can see it in the pro peloton on the road, the guys who've developed those skills in their formative years.
Definitely, because there's no suspension, there's no massive tire. And you have to ride like very precisely, and you also have to read and understand the surface, what constantly changes, of course, in the race. Every loop you come into the same spot, it changed because 100 wheels or 150 wheels went over the spot. So that was one of my most challenging parts in a race, to ride very efficient, going down with the heart rate, not braking too much, because keeping the speed, keeps the heart rate down and gives me at the end like more credit to do like a fast last lap.
I'm warming to the idea as long as someone else brings the hose pipe and cleans off all the kit and the bike at the end of it. Let's bring it right up to date then, Roger. I mean, what's your view of the current crop of British cyclocross talent as we get immersed in the season, particularly Tom Pidcock, because all eyes are on him because Tom is just a phenomenon in whatever kind of discipline he attempts.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, he was special enough that a few years ago I went up to watch him at Nationals just to, I'd heard some rumblings from Paul Milne Cycles, so my old the Thackerys that I used to race against helped nurture him through the under 16 years. And so I'll come up and have a look at this guy. He's the one. And I mean, he is a phenomenon. He really is. But again, it does come down to that thing. He's got the package. He can ride threshold. He recovers, and he can stay. And that's the most important thing: is reading the roads, reading the course, but doing that while your heart rate's at 190. And there's not many bike riders do that. They don't crash when they're doing 140. They crash when they're on the limit, and can't not really focusing on what's going on around them. And that's the thing I notice now is when I ride my bike now, I'm frightened of the car, I'm frightened of the descent. But as a bike rider, everything is in slow motion. Why does a crash feel like it's going to take forever? Because you've already seen it happening a few seconds before it's happening because you're analysing all of these things. And cross was fantastic from that. I mean, you imagine doing 30k an hour on the wheel on a surface that's changing all of the time. You just have to process so much. And I think that's what cross was really good for the road. I think that's what the track side of it misses a little bit. And you do see the guys coming through from the track side a little bit more limited on their skills compared to the Pidcocks, for example.
Well, they've got the cadence down, haven't they?
Exactly.
They can spin that very high gear. Just very quickly, let me ask you about the domestic road scene, because again, Tom Pidcock races that with Wiggins and the under-23 team they have. It's been quite changeable the past year with teams falling by the wayside, JLT Condor, One Pro Cycling as well in the men's sport, and okay, they're Irish as well, but Aqua Blue are going to the wall. How do you think it's going to pan out? Because I know you've worked in it, you'll keep an eye on the domestic scene as well. So what's going to happen? Well,
I mean, the problem is the world of cycling is changing, and the upper echelons survive because there's a bigger amount of budget. There's longer term commitment, so they survive. But even at the highest level, I've been working with Dimension Data for the last 3 years, and we feel it. Every year we come to the end of the year and the UCI are changing the regulations, changing the rules. And so, it's almost like we should be planning on a 6-month future. But, when you're investing, Sky, whatever their budget is, 20 odd million, they're not planning for 6 months. And that's the biggest thing that we need to get in the sport of cycling is just have a structure that's settled down for a bit so people know what they're expecting to watch. They know, for the fans, they know what's coming. For the teams, we can plan, we can build a team around, if you build a team, we're building a team already last year for next year, yet we're finding out what next year is going to involve around about now, which is crazy because how can you build a team? You can't. And that filters down to the levels below, the continental level, the Pro Conti level. Why is Aqua Blue gone? Because there isn't really a structure for Pro Conti level yet. There's no incentive for a team to be Pro Conti.
Should there be a league? Should there be a league where they can go up to World Tour and World Tour teams have to drop down to Pro Conti?
Exactly. But to be honest with you, Matt, I don't have the great answers because it's a huge story. No. But the thing is, we need a little bit of consistency. But what's happened over the last 4 or 5 years is it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And nobody's really keeping up. We don't get any time for it to settle before we discard it as a bad idea. And I think that's the biggest negative is people just don't know what they're investing in.
Let's finish on a positive then, Mike, and let's just talk about Focus bikes. Because your baby... it started not long after you won that title, and it's 25 years old now. I mean, we could do a whole discussion about owning and running a bike brand and developing it over 25 years. But just to finish off, when you look back over the last 25 years, what does the journey feel like?
I mean, the title in '92 really changed my life, and that gave me the confidence now or never, because with this momentum, I thought I have to do something, because the previous years I wasn't happy with all my previous sponsors. They couldn't give me the bikes I needed to. I wanted to have already like better brake performance on cyclocross bikes. At that time, I was already like using hydraulic rim brakes. Everybody else was like still going on cantilever, and these brakes, they break eventually. I also had like a different shifting system already in '92 on the handle on the brake levers, not on the end of the bar. So it gave me the option. I was at the same time when Shimano came up with the STI shifting system. So I also had the idea, but not the financial power to start that. But the journey, seeing that this baby is going around the world. Today we belong to one of the biggest brands. We have e-bikes, we have mountain bikes, cyclocross, I mean, whatever you're looking for. And we have a great team with engineers which living the same passion. And yeah, it's just nice to talk about these bikes, and you know they are like top and have like different features which other bike brands don't have. I have actually one bike here, so I mean, if you guys want to watch it, the 25-year anniversary Mars cyclocross bike with hand-selected parts, so you're welcome. Also, see me at the booth, and if you have more questions, yeah.
I'd love to, but I've just been pressured into bidding for that other bike that's raising money for World Bicycle League, so, you know, don't tempt me. Ladies and gentlemen, Roger Hammond and Mike Kluge.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Rog. Come see you in a second. Do not go away, because coming up next, we're going to have a really detailed, interesting look at a new book about the Wolf Pack, Team Quick Step, as named by Brian Holm. And we'll be hearing from the photographer who followed them for a year and took some amazing shots that you'll see all on screen, and the man himself will describe them for you as well. So don't go away. He'll be back in a jiffy.